name is Prashant Marathay within our community. And today we have the pleasure of talking with Marc Isaac Potter. I've known Marc for a number of years now, probably going on 20 years. And this is a great opportunity to talk to a good friend. So welcome, Marc. How are you?
Good. How can you possibly say it's a pleasure? That's what I want to know. We're going to joke around here, folks. The audience. Shows with me as the guest are going to be zany shows. And we're going to only do 300 or 400 of these.
So Marc, I've had the chance to kind of think back over our past 20 years and was thinking of a number of things that have either impressed me about you or things that stand out about you. And I thought it would be a good idea.
Dangerous territory.
I thought it would be a good idea to kind of ask you a little bit about all of that. So one of the things that immediately came to mind when I said, what do I know about Marc Isaac Potter, is just the number of partnerships I feel that you have formed and people that you've collaborated with over time. So I was wondering, first, you have this passion to collaborate with others, which I think is awesome. Where does that come from? And who have been some of the interesting people that you have collaborated with?
Okay, where it comes from, I'm glad you asked the part about where it comes from, because my dear friend Prashant did want to do a very positive show, and we're going to do a positive show, but there's going to be a few other things in it too. The reason that I am such a collaborator is when I was a kid, we lived out in the country, and each of us children was very alone. We did things together sometimes, but most of the time I felt very alone, cut off from my family. I had no idea what society was. By the time I was age 20, I couldn't open a can of soup. So, I mean, that's true. So, I mean, yeah, so that's where it comes from. So what was the other part of the question? So who did I collaborate with?
Yeah, who are some of the people that you've collaborated with that kind of come to mind?
Certainly Liberace was the most fun.
Of course. Yes. And all the people I've talked to have collaborated with Liberace say the same thing.
Yes, he's a blast, especially his teeth. Anyway, no, I think the person that I cherish the most that I've collaborated with is Joan Clout Cruz, whose name is now Joan Shum, because she got married, and she's like me. She's kind of old fashioned. So she took her husband's name. He was a reverend. So she and I first met in the late 70s, early 80s, when she became the manager at Stanford.
Oh, okay.
I was working at Stanford as a copy tech, Reprotect 4. She came in as our manager.
Oh, okay. And
I noticed that before she even, I really want to laud her at this point, because it's one of the few chances she's going to get to be lauded. I didn't say laudlin, I said lauded. Yeah. When she was in her interview to get the job, she said, I will only take this job if you guys redo the copy center. So we were living with lights that were loose hanging from the ceiling. We were on concrete floors. We had tables that were the wrong height, all kinds of things. And this was at a very famous university whose name I won't say. Well, I might say.
or have already said.
Have I? No. Well, maybe they'll give me millions to not run the show. That would be fun. That would be good. I'm sure somebody at Stanford is freaking out right now because they pipe right into the NSA thing, you know. So anyway, she did that in the interview. She said, I'm not going to take this job unless you redo the copy center. So before we met her, our copy center started improving. Tables were now the right height for printing. We got some new equipment. We got mats for the concrete floors. We got more new equipment. We got better lighting, and we were flabbergasted. And she came in and she barely took credit for having done that. The only reason I know about it is because her boss was a good friend of mine, Arnie Olds. So I met her. So there was that. Now, when she became the manager, she tried to encourage all of us employees to do something extra with our lives.
Nice.
And I decided to write a seminar about the machine I was operating and how to operate it the best.
Fantastic.
So we were Stanford University, big name. So that's called an in-house copy center. So I started a newsletter for all the in-house copy centers.
Oh, okay.
And in that way, I knew I could be with all those people, all those managers or people at my level, report techs. But also it would be lay the groundwork for this seminar that I was going to introduce. So first I started a series of lunches among the in-house copy centers, and that would be Syntax, City of Palo Alto, a bunch of other big name companies that
Sure.
I can't remember.
Sure.
And that went over well. We talked about things at lunch like employee theft, things that were serious matters, employee morale, how do you handle a difficult customer? I had a customer once that was usually when you're in the copy center, this is all important, okay? And we're going to do this. I'm going to talk. So hopefully your 1,500 questions will last more than one show. Usually the admins came in from every department of physics, department of math, department of biology, etc. One time this professor of physics comes in and, he thinks, I don't know his name, so I can't reveal who he is. He thought he was God in the universe. And he came in and he said, I need this done in, 45 minutes. And I looked at the paperwork. I got out my pen and pencil. I said, sir, that is mathematically impossible. Our machines ran at 2.5 copies per second. And even if I gave it the theoretical speed with no interruptions, it was still impossible. He said, can't you make an exception in my case? And I just turned away from the counter and closed my eyes and reminded myself never to become a professor.
So you met Joan Cloud Cruz or Joan Schwam at Stanford when you were working there.
Yes.
And you were kind of motivated by some of her direction, if you will, and some of her thoughts. And is that kind of where your passion for creating seminars and organizing events kind of came from?
It really is. It really is.
Prior to that, had you not done anything like that?
I hadn't done seminars at all. No, I had been a creative writer.
Right.
Or ever since I was 19, which was, I was 19 in 1704.
Exactly. Was that before or after Columbus arrived?
Columbus never really arrived. That's the myth. He made a left. He made a left somewhere, and we never saw him.
We'll get to the writing part in just a bit here, but effectively, when I think of you, I think of someone who organizes and someone who puts on seminars and someone who collaborates with others.
Corroborates.
And really what you're kind of telling me is that your association with Joan is kind of what started all of this. Excellent. Excellent. So now, I remember you had even written a couple of seminars with Joan herself. Is that right?
Yes, we wrote one. I don't remember the first name we gave it, but we changed the name later. This is really true stuff. What surprises me about my life, I'm being serious now. I'll tell you when I'm serious by saying the word serious.
Okay.
Seriously, many things in my life shadow developments in American history, things that happen like there's something out there called dialectic behavioral therapy. In a seminar that I wrote later, I wrote some of that stuff that I didn't even know was anything near what they're doing.
No, interesting.
It's pretty much the same stuff.
Nice.
So in some ways, I have to give myself credit for being an invisible forefather of some of this stuff.
A man ahead of your time.
We wrote a seminar. We called it Cooperative Agreements.
Yeah, I remember. I attended that seminar. I attended that.
Oh, did we actually give it? I didn't know.
Yeah. I remember attending it.
Yeah,
I think you actually
we called it something before that. It started with an S.
Right.
Sickening agreements or something. I don't
remember. I attended it, I think the very first time you presented it, and then you presented it a couple of times after that. I remember Joan at least telling me about that. So that's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Yes, and that was
What's
fun, and that was really I had been doing Toastmasters
okay.
for about a long time, 7 years, 10 years. I
Right.
kept a record of all my Toastmaster presentations.
Yeah.
I did over 500 presentations to 96,000 people.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
So,
So
and that at that point I stopped counting. So there was more,
yeah.
especially if you do radio or television, and then you can put
Right.
like 125,000 people in there. I never even got to that point. These
So
were real people in chairs.
so one of the questions I've got is, you had been creating these seminars, you'd been doing this organization at a local level, because you yourself, the presenter, has to be able to be in touch with these local groups.
Well, yeah, that
But
we're
at
talking
some
the late
point,
1990s. So I mean,
but at some point you transitioned from making the presentation yourself to actually getting involved in community TV. How did that
yes.
transition take place?
Okay, it's pretty simple. A friend of mine said to me, like so many friends will say to so many other friends, you should go check this out.
Right.
Not a lot of motivation there to do anything, but I did. I went and checked it out. From the moment I first walked in the door, I mean, probably moments before I walked through the door, I was hooked. The first year I was there, I won Volunteer of the Year because I was there every day. I even came in on Sundays when nobody was there and smoked cigarettes in the parking lot just to be there.
Very cool. But what
Yeah.
was it, do you think, that kind of motivated you into that realm? Because I feel like there's some sort of common link between what you had been
There
doing
is.
before
Yeah.
to there.
Yeah. There's the whole thing is communication. I mean, media. I was at Stanford as a printer. Before Stanford, I was printing. After Stanford, I did printing. And then I did radio. Then I did TV. And I did seminars and I did public speaking. Every one of those things has to do with communication and media. So I have a very long, multifaceted experience.
Background in that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
Glad you're here. You can keep me on target.
Totally,
I forget by the end
totally
of this
get that.
sentence, I forget what we're doing.
Well, one of the other things that has always fascinated me about you is your love of poetry and
Yes.
writing. Obviously, that's part of the genre of communication, but it's poetry specifically is almost a specialized skill that you've been kind of going after for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What motivated you to kind of move in that direction?
Well, when I was a teenager, about 14 or 15, I couldn't understand the world. I had kids at school saying things to me like, your mother is not your mother. And that question really bothered me. It wasn't just neutral for me. It really bothered me. I had a mother. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And out of that pain, I started writing poetry in notebooks.
Okay.
And at the time, I didn't really know it was poetry because I wasn't in high school yet, I don't think. I wouldn't have been. I would have been not in high school yet. Once I got to high school, we started studying poetry. And I went, okay, this is what I've been doing.
Oh, okay.
So I just really love poetry. I see it as the one place that's has the most freedom. I won't say it's 100% free because you can't say absolutely everything.
Yeah.
According to law and all the rest of it. But I'm more free there than I am in other places. And oftentimes, if there was a very adult topic that I want to get to, I kind of morph it.
Right.
I extrapolate to something like strawberries, hummingbirds eating strawberries or something. And then it seems very just fine. Yes, we'll publish that. Thank you very much. So
very good.
And I would invite, it sounds very egotistical, but I'm very shy. So in this interview, I'm practicing being more forward.
Okay. Good to know.
I want to ask people to take my name as they see it on the screen and put it in quotes and put it in Google. And you'll see that I've been published about 50 times.
Nice. So
Yeah.
in all of these seminars that you've done, what has been one of the funny moments that arose? What's something that went wrong? Something that just kind of
Oh my
threw you for
God.
a loop?
Oh, how did you know? Do you know about that already? You know the one I'm going to tell?
Let's tell me, and then I'll tell you.
Okay. My seminar eventually, I stopped it because I wasn't getting enough people.
Okay.
But one time I used to teach it in Los Altos in the what was then the conference room at the Los Altos Town Crier.
Okay.
They have since turned that into the editorial department. But when it was there, I was getting individual people in the class, and eventually I got a company. I said, okay, this is a big step.
Yeah.
So I decided, in order to make sure I would get more companies, there were 4 guys coming in from this company from Redwood City who saw something in the paper because I was advertising at Los Altos Town Crier. I decided to single one of those 4 guys out and ask the group to imagine him wearing a dress.
How did that go?
I went on and on and on about how he would look in a dress, what kind of color of the dress would be, what length it would be, what he'd look like in good lipstick. You know,
Oh,
he sort of has a visage of a woman anyway. Yeah. So they didn't sign up for the next class. I don't know why.
Well,
and I never got another corporate customer.
the word was out.
Yeah.
Very cool. So if you could talk to another Marc Potter coming up in the ranks right now,
which one?
Yeah, what are some of the key things around communication, around seminars, around collaboration would you kind of want to pass on to that person?
Well, one thing I definitely would, because I was in sales for a long time, too. I managed 31 salespeople.
Okay.
Over at A.L. Williams. I would say repetition is more important than the public would have you know. And the example I would give is, why do you think Coca-Cola, after 120 years, is still advertising?
Yeah.
We all know there's Coca-Cola. Those of us that like Coca-Cola know that we like it. And those that don't. And, the kids coming up nowadays are going to find out from their parents. But yet every day around the world, Coca-Cola spends hundreds of millions of dollars advertising.
Yeah.
Why is that? They want that at the front of your mind, not anywhere else in your mind. They want it in the front. And as much as salesmen and seminar attendees dislike repetition, it's one of the most important things we can do.
So you're saying repetition in terms of practice or in terms of saying the same content multiple times?
Both.
Okay.
Both. They say you don't really form a habit until about maybe 30 or even 60 days of doing it every single day.
Yeah.
That was one of the things Liberace taught me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
practice.
Practice.
That's it. Excellent. So that's one thing. But how about in terms of maybe developing content and putting content forward? How do you kind of figure out what content is relevant, what content you want to really develop, and maybe some content you don't want to develop? How do you make those decisions?
Okay. I did that through a happy accident.
Okay.
I learned that. I was teaching a class. I used to be a life coach. Okay. And I rented an office from a therapist. I subletted an office from a therapist in Palo Alto.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my clients suggested that we have a group. So we had a group. We had a group come into the office, and I taught the whole group. Now that's not therapy. It's just life coach. I think I lost my place here. What was
No, we're talking about how you had this happy accident of being able to.
Yeah. So we're during the group, I said, look, I want each of you to get a piece of paper. And I gave them a piece of paper. And I said, write on here, what is the thing you're trying to get out of this class the most?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody did that. And they showed the piece of paper in front of themselves. And as they were doing that, my mind started writing a seminar.
Oh, okay.
Which later became Being, Listening, and Speaking Dynamics. And that action became part 3 of a 3-part seminar.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
it just, from there, I was off and running. I could write a seminar about toothpaste, What are the 7 qualities of toothpaste and why do you really need those?
Okay. So you got very adept at kind of hearing topics from audience members and being able to convert those into seminars.
Yes.
Okay.
You just take the bullet points of the characteristics of something, and then you ask a question around that bullet point.
Oh, okay.
That's it. That's all you do.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have to do a lot of research, or I should say differently, what kind of research did you do in kind of creating these different seminars? Did you intuitively know it, or did you have to study it?
The research happened in my life from the age I was till when I was about 28 up until the time that I wrote my first seminar, all the things that happened in my life.
I see.
My marriage, I was in EST. I did 10,000 hours of EST.
Wow. Okay.
And I can tell you what they were if you want to know. We may not get to all of it by the end of the
That's right. Not in our 27 minutes that we have together.
And so that's a seminar. I took that seminar, then I took all the seminars they offered.
Okay.
And I did each one 3 times.
Oh, okay.
Everything they offered at the time.
Right.
Then I took other people's seminars. There were other people seeing how much money Werner Erhard was making and started other seminars like Network Spring or Spring something.
Sure.
I can't even remember. And I took all that stuff, everything I could find.
Yeah.
And then I read about NLP, and then I did this, and then I did that, and then then I sold life insurance. I sold Amway. I sold Sprint. I sold Fund America.
Yep.
Did a lot of sales, and all that stuff, you put it in a blender and it comes out whatever you ask me.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we've got just a few more minutes left. I want to get to a couple of other quick topics here. I'm curious if you could pick maybe 1 or 2 books that you feel have been really influential in your life.
Oh my God. Okay.
I know there are a lot, but I just want a couple of titles.
Tons. Okay. One book is called 1Q84.
1Q84. Okay. What's that
book
about?
is written by somebody. I live in a group home and they're making noise in the background. Just deal with it.
It's all good. 1Q84. Tell me what 1Q84 is.
His name, I can't. Have you got your computer in front of you?
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, I can't remember how to say his name. He's Japanese. Murakami, or it's not. I'm not saying it right.
Okay. Let's see. Haruki Murakami. Yeah. Okay.
So that book's there's certainly, and then other people. I'm just going to say people instead of books.
Okay.
Because all the books by these people were influential to me. Weldon Keys. He's an American poet. A Russian man named Daniil Karms.
Okay.
He's very famous in my eyes. He was imprisoned 3 or 4 times and died in prison. Samuel Beckett, who's an Irishman that lived most of his life in France.
Okay. But before just giving me a list of authors, tell me, for instance, Samuel Beckett. What is it about Samuel Beckett that influenced you, and why would you recommend him to others?
Well, because in my seminar, we talk a lot about silence.
Okay.
And the main operating principle is listening cultivates wisdom. Okay. Samuel Beckett is a famous playwright and poet and story writer.
Okay.
And he had the guts to say that a quote of his is that writing is an affront to silence. I mean, it's amazing that a writer would have the nerve to say that. And he did. And he has a book called Complete Prose, which is about 300 or 400 pages.
All right.
And he wrote a 45-second play called Breath.
Nice.
He wrote he's famous for one play called Waiting for Godot.
Oh, okay. Waiting for
Est-ce que
Godot.
vous parlez
Okay.
français?
Yeah.
N'est-ce pas?
Je
Un
parle
peu?
un peu.
Un peu. Okay.
So,
Voiture.
that's fascinating. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. So he's certainly an interesting author, and I can see kind of the parallels of how the stuff that he may have written would kind of appeal to you,
Yeah.
and how you'd be drawn to that. Very
It
nice.
looks like nonsense on the page. Another person obviously is, can't think of his name now. He's an Irishman that wrote Dubliners.
Dublin.
Who is that? You know his name.
I don't know his name.
Extremely famous.
Dubliners.
Probably one of the most
A
informative.
novel by James Joyce.
There we go. And his sister Joyce. I had to say that.
That's right. That's right. So good they named her twice.
Yes.
Nice.
What other questions do you? Are we almost done? Can we do the second show?
Well, we're
don't
wrapping
change
this
your
up.
shirt.
What's that?
You don't have to change your shirt for the second show, because
Okay.
here we are in the first show, and I'm telling them that you've got a blue shirt on, so it's okay. Okay.
That's good, because now that you've drawn attention to it, they'll be looking for it. This is kind of one of those cliffhangers, like what's going to happen in the next show. So this is excellent. This is excellent.
He's gonna have a blue shirt on, but it's gonna be extremely differently blue. Just a shred.
That's it.
Try to notice how tiny the difference is.
Exactly.
It's gonna be the same shirt, but they'll think, oh my God, I gotta find that difference. Quick, let's put both shows up at the same time.
Well, Marc, we are certainly running up against time here. So I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us today. As always, it's been a pleasure. And I've left happier and with more smiles after having met you, which I always appreciate. So thank you for being on our show. And for the rest of you, thank you for watching in our community and hearing what Marc Isaac Potter has to say. Have a great time afterwards. All the best, folks.